Well, hey, everybody. Here we are. It's Saturday, it's 7 p.m., and it's time for the GAIJIN50 Plus live stream. This is your regular host here. My name is Edward, and unfortunately, my co host, Carl, can't be here tonight. That guy, man, I don't know what's the matter with him. Actually, I do know what's the matter with him. He's probably right now out over the Pacific Ocean somewhere, probably in the vicinity of Alaska or something like that, on his way back to the United States to take care of a little bit of business. And that means that I'll be flying solo here today. So I hope you enjoy it. I see we already have a couple of people showing up here. My good old friend Tokyo Dan. Hey, Tokyo Dan, how you doing? Glad to see you here. And we have one other person here. I hope we get more people. We'll hang out for good morning, folks. Hey, Kelvin. Bright and early, Kelvin. I guess you're getting ready to cut the grass there or something like that. Welcome. Glad you got the contact you were waiting for. And I guess everybody's happy. Nice weather we're having in Tokyo. Probably the perfect weather here today. And hope nothing happened. No, nothing happened to him. He just has to go home to take care of some business that back in the States. He was telling me though, we were talking the other day, and he told me that he had to pay 400,000 yen for a round trip ticket. That's a lot of money. Remember when it was around 80,000 yen? Wow. Kelvin says, yeah, thank you so much. He has been very good. Okay, that's a little bit of inside baseball between me and Kelvin. Uh, so it's inside baseball, so I won't get into it. So I hope everything has been treating everybody well. David Cole says, hey, David, how you doing? Every time I see your name, I think about the country western singer, David Allen Cole. I say that every time you show up. Sorry about that. Yeah, I had such a hard week. I made a big mistake. I agreed to do some work against my better judgment, and it has jammed my schedule up so bad that right now I'm going to have to find a way to get out of it. But I picked up classes on Monday and Wednesday as a what shall I say, as a special favor to some people. And so, excuse me, I just did something that is blocking my screen. And so it has really put a crimp into my YouTubing schedule. That's why I haven't posted anything for a while. I'll get into that in a bit, but yeah, Kelvin talks about some tickets here. Let's see what we got. By the way, tickets for me and my son coming there is almost $5,000 round trip. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Like I said, it used to be around 80,000 yen. And David Cole says, I'll take your classes if they don't mind a 70-year-old teaching. Well, they don't mind me teaching, so I guess it's okay. But, I don't, I don't know, if I'm kind of stuck right now. I have to, these classes are just starting. And even though they're only going up to, I think they said July or something like that, it's got me it has me getting out of bed in the morning like about 5:30, which I really enjoy. I don't know about you guys, but I'm basically a nighttime person. I like working until late at night and sleeping late in the morning. And like I said, these classes have me getting up at 7:30 in the morning, which is 5:30 in the morning, which is no fun for me. Okay. Wow, we got this a very light attendance here. I wonder if I screwed it up by changing the time. I shifted the time again to 7 o'clock from 8 o'clock. So I wonder if we'll have a big upsurge with viewers from 8 o'clock. Another thing that I'd like to tell you about, since we're just going to be chatting for a while, is that I invested in some hardware, I guess you could call it. So I'm going to be upping the game a little bit. It's not, I didn't buy an expensive camera or something like that, but I invested in some devices that should make my video production more efficient and smoother, I think. I hope. And that's supposed to be arriving later this week. And I hope that it'll make my videos much more watchable and much more efficient to make. And it'll take less time from concept to final video. But like I said, due to the work and due to that, I haven't been able to do very much. So I've just been like taking care of the comments and things like that, which is always an adventure. Oh, by the way, I mentioned, I think, did I mention? Oh, what is it? Oh no, it's nothing. It's nothing big. I'm not trying to be coy or anything like that. It's so minor that if I tell you what, well, I don't know. Maybe I should just be honest. I like doing live streams like this. I can get in front of a camera and talk with you guys off the cuff without too much problem. But when I try to put out a real video where I'm trying to report on something that's got some, I've got to be careful about the facts and about who's doing what and all this kind of thing. I get a little bit tensed up. And so instead of just talking off the cuff, I have to have notes or bullet points. I don't like speaking off a script very much. Or I should say, if I have a script in front of me, I tend to read the script and it sounds really wooden. So a long time ago, I had a YouTube channel, and I purchased a teleprompter. Now, don't laugh too hard, but they do sell teleprompters for this kind of YouTube video production, and it's a thing where you put a camera behind a one-way mirror, and you put a iPad laying flat, and then the iPad shines up to the reflection of the one-way mirror is tilted towards you. So the iPad shoots up to the one-way mirror, and then so you can see what the iPad is showing, but the camera is in back of the one-way mirror, so the camera can't see what the one-way mirror is showing. So I used to use that, and I liked it quite a bit. But the one drawback of it was that it was a manual control. So you're sitting there talking, and you're fiddling with the keyboard to keep it scrolling to where you want it to be. And so I didn't like that very much. So I never used it. And then I came across some software, and this software for the iPad, what it does, it's got voice recognition and it's got text recognition. So what happens is, as you talk, it listens to what you're saying, and it keeps your current place in the script on screen. And if you go off script, it stops scrolling. And then if you go back to the script, it starts scrolling again, which is really cool. You could either use it either for bullet points and notes that you're looking at the screen and you're seeing your bullet points and notes to remind you what you're supposed to be talking about without looking away or looking past the camera or stuff like that, like I tend to do when I have notes nearby. I don't know if this is all making very much sense to you, but Dan asked, so that is the answer. And so anyway, all right. Now I already had the teleprompter, but I didn't have a camera. And these teleprompters, you can either put a high end, like an SLR or a mirrorless camera behind it, and use one of those. But those are, as you know, very expensive. And so I was thinking, I don't want to go out and spend over 100,000 yen for a damn camera. who knows how long I'm going to continue doing this. And so I just didn't use the teleprompter. And then my current iPhone started giving me a problem. I've got an iPhone 10, and the screen is starting to go, and it's just getting old in general. The screen parts of the screen are starting to disappear and things like that. And there are certain functions that are made available by the newest iOS for the telephone that won't work on the iPhone 10. You have to have a more advanced telephone. So I decided to break down and buy an iPhone 17 Pro. Now, the iPhone 17 Pro has a really good camera, and the iPhone 17 Pro can be mounted inside the teleprompter. So that's going to give me the ability to use the teleprompter and get high quality video recording from the telephone, and smoother and more professional recording, talking head recording. Now, this camera that I have now is really good. I'm still going to use that like for this webcam kind of thing and things like that, and some videos. This is the Osmo DJI Pocket 4 4K, really good camera. However, it's a gimbal camera, and it has got a gimbal on top, beep, 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 beep. And the teleprompter requires you to cover the camera with a heavy felt cloth, because it has to cut out the light, because the light coming in behind the teleprompter causes trouble with the camera settings and things like that. So I'm unable to use this camera with the teleprompter. And so the thing that I'm waiting on is my iPhone 17 Pro. Does that answer your question, Dan? A lot more detailed than I think a lot of people wanted to hear, but since you asked, that is it. And I'm always honest with you, no matter what. Okay, so that is it. As soon as that thing comes, I've got a couple of really good videos in the lineup coming up in the docket, but I just haven't recorded them yet because I'm waiting for my hardware, and the hardware is scheduled to arrive on Wednesday. And if everything goes right, I should have more stuff coming out from next week. Okay, Dan. Dan, I'll show you my new phone the next time we get together. I'm not one of these, got to have the newest phone. I mean, actually, the iPhone 10 has been very nice to me for a very long time. But this finally gave me an excuse to go out and spend some money, Maybe I should keep my English teaching job to pay for it. No, I really not. If it means getting up at 5:30 in the morning, it's not worth it to me. All right, we've got some more people. Either they came late or they didn't realize that we're starting early. Hi, everybody. Glad to see you there. Remember, I did a short a couple weeks ago about that person who was in Nepal, or you might have seen it in the comments. I got a comment from a person in Nepal, and they said, after reading all this stuff that's going on in Japan and the anti-foreigner stuff and how tough it is to get a visa and blah, blah, blah. And this person from Nepal wrote a comment, and they said, well, it's, I'm going to go to work. I'm scheduled to go to Japan and work in the food service industry. And I'm about to leave within a couple of days. And my company keeps sending me all of these emails about all these regulations. Don't forget to use deodorant. Don't forget to brush your teeth. Don't forget to take a shower every day. You know how Japanese people are. I mean, they think all gaijins are ignorant barbarians. But anyway, this person was saying, I don't know, I'm starting to regret that I ever accepted this job. And this person told me that they were going to be working for Komita Coffee. And I sent them an email, an answer to their comment. And I said, hey, man, hang in there, Japan can be a little bit of a pain to get used to, but once you get used to it, it's pretty smooth and it's well worth it. So, you're lucky that you're working at a place, a good company like Komeda Coffee, big company, and it's a good chance for you. So grab it. And that person is in Japan now, and they sent me a message and they said, I'm in Japan, everything's going well so far, and everything's cool. So if you ever make it down to this branch, and he gave me the branch name of Komeda Coffee, look me up, and he gave me his name and stuff like that. So I might go down there and bring my camera. And of course, I'm not going to bother him during work, but I might go down there and hook up with this guy and do an interview and put it up here. I've got a couple of interviews all planned out. There's one interview that I've been planning for a long time, and if she may be watching, I don't know. She usually comes in on the Wednesday live stream, and that's Lisa. And Lisa's in China, and she lived in Japan for like 10 years or 15 years. And I've been promising to get together with her for an interview, but this new work, like I said, put a crimp in my schedule, so I'm having a hard time getting together with her. But I think that's going to be a good one of these days. All right. Okay, things are pretty quiet, so let's go to the news. Here's a news story. Now, this is an American news story, but it is kind of related to Japan and this immigration stuff and the business manager stuff. So let's have a look at it. I'm sure everybody caught this. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I'm sure everybody caught this if you're following American news. And some mayor of Arcadia, I think it is, Arcadia, California, has pleaded guilty to acting as an illegal agent of the Chinese Communist Party. Wow. This is American news, like I said, but let's take a quick look at it, and then I'll talk about it in relation to Japan. And Arcadia Mayor Eileen Wang has agreed to plead guilty to federal charges of acting as an unregistered foreign agent for the People's Republic of China, PRC. She admitted to a plea agreement to acting as a admitted in a plea agreement to acting as a foreign agent from at least 2020 through 2022, coordinating with individuals at the direction of the PRC government to promote PRC interests by spreading pro-PRC propaganda in the United States. Yeah. As you can see, this is airbrushed. This is what she really looks like. And this is not Wang's first brush with CCP-linked figures. Her former fiancé and 2022 campaign treasurer Yao Ning Mike's son was sentenced earlier this year to 4 years in federal prison for acting as an illegal agent of the PRC. They talk about other PRC activities in China. Reedley Biolab, whose owner had deep ties to the CCP's military civil fusion program, received millions from China while operating an unlicensed facility stocked with dangerous pathogens. Eric Swalwell's campaign, he's got a bad case of yellow fever, accepted nearly $15,000 from a CCP-tied Beijing law firm with a Silicon Valley office. And there was a CCP exploitation of U.S.-China university partnerships. Wang, who switched from the Republican Party in 2022 to run as a Democrat. I was surprised to see that. She was originally Republican, then a Democrat. I wonder, originally Republican, then a Democrat working for the CCP. Wow, busy lady, huh? Okay, I wanted to bring this up because this is interesting in light of what Japan is doing now to cut off their business visas. They were saying that they had too many Chinese people who were getting this visa and abusing this visa, and Japan has is moving to crack down on its granting of permanent residence status and cracking down on its allowance of naturalization from another nationality to Japanese. And a lot of people say that most of these moves are aimed at Chinese people because there's been a big flux of Chinese people under the business manager visa. And I wonder, there's no way that I can claim one way or the other, but I really wonder if Japan isn't seeing news like this, where agents of the CCP are getting themselves into governmental positions in the United States or in other countries. I don't know, it might be. And they don't want that to happen in Japan, especially since China is so close to Japan. I guess it would be possible for some Chinese person to come here on a business visa, become a permanent resident, become a Japanese citizen. There are, even now, some Japanese government politicians and representatives who were originally of Chinese nationality, who have become nationalized Japanese people. And maybe they're really afraid of that kind of thing, of Chinese or other countries' people taking Japanese nationality, getting into the government, and working against the best interests of Japan. What does everybody think about that? Everybody's so quiet today. Are you all tired? Did you have a hard day? All right. There's another news story that I had about, we've mentioned it before, and that was that some local government wants to pass a law or an ordinance that said only people with Japanese nationality can work for their government in a government position, can become a government employee. And that's in the news again. I think is it Miyagi or something like that? I can't remember exactly where. But the mayor came out and said, they asked the mayor, why are you pushing this? And he said, well, we want to make, maybe people from another country won't work in the best interests of our local government. And yeah, that's exactly. How about that U.S. politician whose name sounded like Swallowwell? Yeah, that's Swalwell. That I mentioned him in this story. He got money from the CCP. He was running around with, what was her name? Somebody called her Yum Yum or something like that. And she was, she saw the writing on the wall and boogied on back home. And can everybody hold on a minute? I just noticed in the camera here that my studio door is open, and I'm gonna close that because my wife may come home and make a lot of noise, and we wouldn't want that. So hold on just a second. By getting up and closing that door, I also revealed that though I have a nice shirt on and look dressed up, I'm wearing trainer pants below. So those of you who are sharp could probably see that. You could check out my trousers as I went to shut the door. Yeah, Swalwell. Yeah, he's in big trouble now. He's getting into all kinds of stuff, and it looks like he's being destroyed by his own party, actually. But it's rough business politics, isn't it? Tokyo Dances, a 1972 novel, Camp of the Saints, covers all of this illegal immigration, so much so that it was taken off Amazon for a while. Well, the worm is turning about that. There are a lot of worms turning these days. I think this immigration thing, or the way people feel about immigration, is changing, or the people who have always felt negative about immigration are starting to be heard more than they had been in the past. There's immigration, and then so-called global warming or climate change, whatever it's being called these days. I mean, whatever happened to that? Electric vehicles, that seems to be has quieted down. And I saw a pretty good video today by, I think it was the Critical Drinker, and he was talking about movies and the Marvel franchise with who was and Marvel was trying to make all of these movies that had a lot of female heroes, and it just didn't work. I mean, almost. I don't know if even almost is necessary. Anyway, a lot of them bombed, and there's this other one coming out. Is it the Odyssey? That also is a lot of people are saying that it's going to be another bomb because it has been, what shall I say, rewritten. History has been rewritten in such a way that nobody can that the movie is just is laughable. It's so I think a lot of things are changing, including people's feelings towards immigration. All right. And so Japan is cracking down on immigration, and we're living in Japan and we're on visas, so we feel it and we may not like it very much, but hey, maybe it's necessary, huh? Maybe it's necessary all over. We'll see. I still think, I still suspect, and don't quote me on this if I'm ever wrong, but I still suspect that Japan will be tweaking the system here and there, and it'll end up not being as bad as we fear it will be. Okay. All right. Here's another one that I discovered, which I thought was a pretty darn good idea. Japan is always saying that they need all these foreigners, and then the foreigners come here, and there's all this complaining because some of them don't speak Japanese and they don't know what to do and they don't know how to get along in the local environments. And we did a story recently about the people come from, like Vietnam and Burma and stuff like that, and they come to Japan and they're stationed in the rural areas, and they get training for a couple years. They learn Japanese, and as soon as their training period is over and they're able to convert to the next type of visa, they pack up and head for Tokyo because that's where the higher pay is. And even, there was one we had the other day, and what was her name? Her name was Bui or something like that. And this woman said, yeah, the people were nice where I was, and, they took good care of me and they treated me well, but I had no social life. The only people I hung out with were other trainees, and it was really boring. And so she took off and she ended up in Tokyo, and she was living in a small place, but she said, yeah, I love it. It's a lot more exciting. And that's the trouble. I started a new semester, and there's students coming in from here and there and from other cities, and even, not cities that are not so far away. Chiba. I'm talking to one student from Chiba, and the lower level English class, they ask questions. For example, where's your hometown, and what is your hometown like, and things like that. And one of the questions is, would you like to live in your hometown in the future? And every student, including those from Chiba and those from Kyushu and those from other places, would you like to live in your hometown? They all say, no. No. Where would you like to live? Tokyo, because Tokyo is where it's at in Japan. As I often say, I've said this so much, I'm sure Tokyo Dan has heard it 100 times. There are only two places in Japan, Tokyo and not Tokyo. And it's getting worse and worse. And like I said, even the foreign workers who come in here, to replace Japanese people end up heading for Tokyo as soon as they can. But here's the good idea that I saw. A home builder in Japan's Oita prefecture, now Oita is down in Kyushu, has a pretty good idea. They teach the Oita local dialect to their foreign employees. Doesn't that sound genius? Why didn't somebody else think about that? A home builder in Oita has been putting effort into teaching local Oita dialect to its foreign employees, aiming to help them better integrate into the community. In recent years, Sakai Company, based in the city of Oita, has actively hired foreign employees to adapt to an increasingly diverse society. 4 more workers from Nepal and Myanmar joined the company in and after 2025, and now it has 6 foreign nationals on staff in total. And it's teaching them the foreign dialect. They gave one example. For example, Shinken. Shinken. Now, Shinken means seriously in standard Japanese, but they're saying that in Oita, for example, if you say Shinken oishi, it means very delicious. And so that's a special usage of the word Shinken, but that's the way they say it in Oita. And one person from Nepal said enthusiastically, "I want to learn Oita dialect as I will be visiting customers' homes starting in August." So the guy who runs the factory, this company, says learning the dialect will help foreign staff connect with craftspeople at work sites and with customers, and help them come to think of Oita as their second hometown. That's a great idea, isn't it? That is really smart. Because, if these people think, yeah, I'm going to go there, so I'm not going to learn the local dialect. I'm going to stay here for a couple of years. And then all these local people look at me like I'm some kind of a stranger, but I want to fit in, but I can't fit in so teach them the dialect and maybe they'll fit in better. I remember when I first came here and I was down in Fukuoka, and in those days, I didn't know anything about anything, but I started picking up Japanese. And of course, I was picking up Fukuoka dialect. And to me, I thought, not, being a total know-nothing, I thought I was learning Japanese. So everything I learned in Fukuoka dialect, I thought was standard Japanese. And it worked fine until I came up to Tokyo. And in Tokyo, every time I opened my mouth, everybody within earshot started laughing because I was talking like a real Fukuoka native. So that was pretty interesting. Okay, we've got somebody here, Ash Sasaki. I like the slow Inaka life. I got to agree with you in a way. I moved to Fukuoka at one time thinking I was at that age. I might as well move down there. That was my roots. That's my wife's hometown. My wife was dead set against it, by the way. And my wife is always right. Just ask her. And Fukuoka is nice in a lot of ways, and it's Inaka in a lot of ways, but it's also Inaka in a lot of ways. And so I ended up coming back to Tokyo because Tokyo is just so convenient. Tokyo society is a little bit cooler, but that's okay. The Inaka life that I really liked was when I was up in Tochigi. Now, I was up in Tochigi in a place called Yaita, which is north of Utsunomiya, and that was wonderful. It only had like 30,000 people, which is a pretty small place, but the people were wonderful because that place, Yaita, was only like an hour, just over an hour from downtown Tokyo. So it was so easy to get to Tokyo from Tochigi, but it was Inaka life. But they weren't so Inaka that a gaijin was kind of Inaka. So yeah, I really loved it. And the only reason I am not there now is because to live there you need to have a car. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I saw plenty of people who enjoyed life there for a long time, and then they got to a certain age where driving became less and less viable, and they had a hard time, like even going shopping, grocery shopping, and things like that. And they would have to depend upon the kindness of neighbors to take them shopping. And I don't want to be like that in my old age. Dan says, I can understand that. I took off for Tokyo too. Osaka was too backwards for me. It was 1976, 1979. Well, I don't know anything about Osaka. I've been there like once, but I don't think I've even spent overnight in Osaka. So I don't know anything about the situation there. I do know that I met a guy one time. He was a German guy. It was when I used to do weight training, and he was using the same weight training place that I was using in Ogikubo, and we started talking. And he told me that he had moved to Tokyo from Osaka. And I asked him, well, what's it like in Osaka? And he said, in Tokyo, maybe you are a gaijin, but in Osaka, you are a gaijin. So it means an outsider. But then again, I've heard other people say that Osaka is it's much friendlier than people in Tokyo. So I don't know. Nothing, right? If anybody would like to straighten me out, Tokyo Dan says it was Yakuza Central. To tell you the truth, so was Fukuoka. Back when I was there, Fukuoka had a lot of Yakuza and a lot of chimpita. Remember those things? I don't think I've ever seen a chimpita these days. Chimpita were like junior Yakuza, and there were a lot of them in Fukuoka, and a lot of Yakuza too. You really had to watch yourself. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Has the internet destroyed the mystery and sense of adventure of living in Japan as a foreigner? Yes, I think so. Quite a bit. Back when I had a blog at the beginning of this century, when blogging was very popular, my blog was really popular. I had a lot of people coming here. And it was because at that time, many people wanted to know more about Japan, and not too many people were coming to Japan, and not too many people knew that much about Japan. And my blog was devoted to showing a true image of what is Japan, not the Disneyland Japan. There were a lot of blogs in those days, temple and tea, and oh, isn't this quaint? And mine was trying to show a realistic view of Japan. And it was, like I said, quite popular. But then everybody and their brother started doing Japan blogs. And it's true about, especially more than the internet, the YouTube and videos, TikTok. So anybody with a camera can turn it on and so, hey, look at this, and there's a lot of BS out there, though. We've talked about this. might have talked about this recently. There's so much fake news about Japan on the internet that's it's just horrible. Okay. Yep. And the rest of, as well as the rest of the world. Yeah. Every place is. You don't have to go anywhere. Just sit back and hit a little YouTube, and there you are. There's one guy that I like to watch. In fact, he inspired me to start this channel, but he's in the Philippines. And that his name is Paul. The name of his channel is Paul in the Philippines, Old Dog New Tricks. And I watched, he was suggested to me for some reason. I don't know why, but I came across his channel. And I saw he used to say, I just started out. I didn't need any fancy equipment. He just puts his telephone in front of him and starts talking. And he says, I don't do anything fancy. And I said, okay, yeah, I'll try that. I'll just start doing that and see how it goes. And that's how I started this channel. I'm still nowhere near his numbers. He's over 100,000 subscribers. So you people get with it. You better start subscribing. No, I'm not one of those guys who gets on there. I checked my statistics and only 20% of you a-holes are subscribed. So get with it and and what do they say? Smash that subscribe. But anyway, yeah. So so Old Dog New Tricks Paul in the Philippines was the guy who inspired me to give this a go. And I still watch him, and I feel like I know a lot about living in the Philippines, though I've never been there, and I probably will never go there. But yeah, that's the nature of the way things are. And Tokyo Dano says, remember Josh in Japan podcast? Yes, I do. Josh in Japan podcast. And I will say the Josh in Japan podcast is what inspired me to start a podcast, because I thought I I can be that terrible at podcasting too. If no, Josh in Japan was a real turn on the microphone and let the kid scream and argue with the wife and just babble along. And I heard him and I said, hey, I can do that too. So okay. Did I tell you about that? I can do that too. That's one of my go-to phrases. I used to live in Ogikubo, and Ogikubo used to have this during the bubble. There was this gaijin who used to get in front of Ogikubo station with what do they call that? Is that a hurdy-gurdy or a music box? It's got a crank on it, and it plays some pretty complex music. And this guy would get out there, and he'd always have an alcoholic drink, and he looked like crap. He was your typical gaijin that Japanese people love to hate. And he'd get out there and cranking his thing, and he had a little box, and people would put money in it, and that's how he made his money. And he was a pretty famous fixture. And I never had anything to do with him, but I knew him on sight because I often saw him standing in front of Ogikubo Station plying his trade. And one day I was in Caldi, one of the first Caldis that opened. So it was, wow, look at all these gaijin goods here. And so I used to go to Caldi and buy things all the time. And so I was in there and I ran into the guy. I mean, we ended up right next to each other, and he turned around and said, oh, hi. I said, oh, hi. So I'll talk to anybody, even the hurdy-gurdy guy. So he said, you live around here? And I said, yeah. I said, I sometimes see you in front of the station. And he goes, yeah. And this guy looked, like I said, like crap. He was dirty. He needed a shave. He looked like he hadn't shampooed his hair for about 6 months and stuff like that. Real grody looking guy. So he said to me, well, what do you do here? And I said, I'm a translator. I translate for companies their stuff from Japanese to English. And he looked at me, looked me up and down. And he said, yeah, I can do that too. And my wife was there. And from then on, I mean, for the past, what was that? It must be 20 or 30 years. That's been one of our go-to phrases. Every time we come up across, when Josh in Japan, remember Josh in Japan? Yeah, I listened to Josh in Japan's podcast, and the first thing I thought was, I can do that too. Okay. Dan, behave, would you please? Behaved. Oh, Nookie Heaven. He's not talking about Japan. He's talking about the Philippines. Yeah, I really wonder about that. Old dog Paul in the Philippines, he has a relatively young Filipino wife, like I think he's in his early 70s, but he's starting to look worse for wear. But his wife may have just turned 40 or something like that. So he's one of those kind of guys. And I guess there are some of these you have to be an old guy with money, it seems, like if you're on a pension of some sort. So if you're able to come up with the jick, you can hook up with some. If you got the jick, you can get the chick. Hey, there you go. And so you see, even in his videos, you see some references to that. Okay, so you got to have your money, and and you got to watch yourself. Because, like my friend used to say, it's easy to make a small fortune in the Philippines. All you have to do is arrive with a big fortune. All right. Hey, Boo Lee, nice to see you. It's funny, I've never heard of Paul, and he popped into my feed earlier this morning. Yeah, I sent him over there. No, not recently. It's okay. Paul tends to ramble sometimes, but he's got some pretty interesting stories, and some of his interviews are pretty cool. And he screwed up. He bought some land, or thought he bought some land, or tried to buy some land, and ran into all kinds of trouble. And he was very frank about what happened to him. And it's educational listening to things like that. But yeah, Paul's channel is. I don't watch him all the time, but every once in a while, what's Paul doing? And I check out what he's done recently. Okay, were you considered an outsider in any way before moving to Japan? I mean, back in the USA. Was I considered an outsider? No, not really. I don't think so. I don't know what my friends thought about that, or people around me. But I did have a kind of non-traditional upbringing. Up until the 8th grade, my upbringing was pretty normal. I will say, just for context, I am a second son, and my brother is 1 year, I don't know, almost 2 years older than I am. And my next youngest sister is only 13 months younger than I am. So my babyhood was very short. And I think because of that, I became a real going my way kind of guy. But anyway, that's the background. That's the little kid kind of stuff. I mean, I was pretty much a mischievous little guy when I was a young kid. And then in 8th grade, I went to a boarding school. I went to an all-boys Catholic boarding school up in Wisconsin, and it was very strict, and we had, we could never go off campus. And, like I said, there was no TV. It was Catholic. We had to go to mass every morning. Lights out in the dormitory was 9:20. Get up at 6 o'clock every day, study hall 3 times a day. I mean, it was very strict. No radios, no Beatles records. If the priests found the Beatles record, it was immediately, if they caught you with a little transistor radio plugged into your ear, they would confiscate it. And of course, everybody had little transistor radios that they stuck into their ear when they got under the covers at night. But we got away with that kind of thing. But it was a constant struggle between the authorities and us, we being red-blooded American teenage kids. And then shortly after I graduated from high school, I joined the Army. Not shortly, but not that long either. I joined the Army, I think it was 18 or something like that, going on 19. And I was in the Army for 4 years. And my first duty station in the Army was on an Aleutian island, way out at the end of the Aleutian chain, where the international date line juts out. It juts out to make way for that island. The island I was at, and the island of Attu. So I was not that. I was closer to the Kamchatka Peninsula than I was to the United States or to the Alaska mainland. And then it was in that capacity that I came to Japan. So even though I don't think I was an outsider, I may have been kind of like a societal outsider. I wasn't part, even though I grew up in the drug era, I was never part of it. I never, was like a lot of my friends got into drugs and drinking and stuff like that. I drank, but I never did like my friends did. Okay. Does that answer your question? As you can see, it's easy to get me to go off on a tangent. So many times I've checked places online and they are nothing like the videos. How can you capture the mood and the characters of people online? That can only be done in person. You're very correct. You're very, very correct, Dom Wings. I've always said, I've got somebody coming calling me, and it's vibrating my watch. But I've always said one of the things that you don't get when you watch a video is the smell. And when I say smell, I don't mean negative. You don't get the full sensory experience, right? So, for example, when I first came to Japan long, long ago, the thing that struck me the greatest at first was the smell. And by smell, I mean a positive thing, fragrance, aroma. And first of all, back in those days, the environmental laws were virtually non-existent. So air pollution was really bad in Japan at the time. I remember when we came in by airplane, we could see Japan like outside the window, and there seemed to be this light gray fog over the landmass. And like I said, the air quality was really, really bad. And the water quality of the rivers and streams was also really, really bad. And if you went off base, like I did the first time, you were immediately hit by the food smells. There were a lot of stir-fried kind of things, and that mixing together produced a very unique aroma that I kind of miss. But it truly made me feel like I was in an Asian country. But I don't smell it like that these days. Part of that is because when you get old, your sense of smell starts to go along with everything else. So, but anyway, you're correct. And remember that the size of what you see is limited. Number two, and as far as photographs, like I always say, it's easy to look good for 1/1000th of a second. All right, so there's that too. Okay, anyone remember Tokyo Kuni? I remember the name. Ednoy. I do remember the name, but I don't remember what he was doing, or was he doing a podcast or a blog or something like that? I definitely remember the name. Okay. There was another person, an oldster, brought up here in one of the strange comments that I got this week. And that was Loco in Yokohama, the old Bay McNeil. Whatever happened to him? He sure disappeared. He was all over the place at one time and then boop, disappeared. Actually, I know what happened to him, but I'll see if anybody else remembers him before I say anything about that. And Tokyo Dano says, I know about that Ogikubo guy, although I never saw him. Yeah. Yeah, when I was in Ogikubo and used to go to the station all the time, he was often out there looking grody, and I don't know, is that called a hurdy-gurdy? I don't know. Didn't he play the harmonica? I don't remember hearing him play the harmonica. I remember him, it was this box, it was a pretty sizable box. It wasn't giant, and it had a crank on the side. It had a stick coming out the bottom, and he used to hold it upright and crank it, and it went, and it was pretty, elaborately decorated. Probably stole it somewhere. I'm joking. I don't want to. What do they call that? I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get sued, right? Chick. What comes next? Dan. There's one thing I can say about Dan. His he's very consistent. Okay, thank you, Dan. Even if you have buku bucks, there are no guarantees of a good partnership. Yeah, yeah. And what was the old saying? A fool and his money are soon parted. There are plenty of stories online. You can see them both in the Philippines and in Thailand of guys with money getting hooked up with some nice young lady, and then there are some guys in the Philippines I've seen where some videos where some guys are homeless and saying, "I used to be, really well off until, this happened," and stuff like that. I mean, the guy's homeless and looks like he's got all kinds of problems. So who knows if he's telling the truth? But okay, I was a Catholic as well. Catholic. Be careful. And if you want to explain that, it's okay. But if you don't want to, don't. All right. Steven Enzeldua. Wow, nice name. He got a big laugh out of that one. I remember McNeil. What happened to him? He used to write for newspapers. Okay. If you want to know, He used to have a blog at the same time I had a blog. And his blog was named Loco in Yokohama, which was the name, I think, of his first book. But my blog, which was named Japundit, and his blog, we were like in the same general social group. I used to read him. He used to read me. I used to comment on his. And we were online friends, and we got along very, very well, as a matter of fact. And back in those days when he had a blog, McNeil was, real friendly and real laid back. And he used to write. He wrote about when he first arrived in Japan and what it felt like being in Japan and the way people looked at him and things like that. And I related totally with what he was saying, and I thought, wow, this guy's got a way of telling a story that's really universal and stuff like that. And McNeil didn't take things too seriously. I mean, he wasn't into calling people racist and things like that. And on his blog, he wrote, in fact, a story about the Gaijin seat, which is similar to what I did a video on not that long ago. And he also wrote a Japan Times article about the Gaijin seat, which is like a reconstitution of his blog post into a newspaper article. But he is known to have written about the Gaijin seat twice. So some commenter commented on my video, says, "Oh, Bay McNeil has been writing about the Gaijin seat for years, but nobody listens to him because he's black." And I said, well, okay, you know that for sure. But anyway, I mean, that's such a crazy claim. But what happened to McNeil was he wrote two books, Loco in Yokohama and my name is Loco and I'm a racist. And he talked about some of his less pleasant experiences in Japan. And he, I never read the book. If you've read the book, you might be able to say better, but he got a little bit more strident about his position about living in Japan. And then he became like a spokesman for race relations, especially of black people in Japan. And he wrote for the Japan Times, and I guess he wrote for the Huffington Post for a while, which I found out later, not because of him, but I found out later that some of these writers for the Huffington Post were writing for free. So writing for the Huffington Post was not that big of a deal. But anyway, he did. And he used to give these seminars at colleges and things like that about being black. And he became very militant about, especially when Black Lives Matter. I remember I read something like him. Well, this happened in Japan, but Japanese people don't care about Black lives. And he started making accusations about the Japanese people, some very, very questionable accusations. But it didn't affect me, so I never paid that much attention to it. And what happened between him and me was one time he wrote me an article and I wrote me an email, and he said, "Hey," he said, "did you hear about this thing with Fuji TV with Rats and Star, which is that Japanese group who used to put on blackface and sing like the rhythm and blues kind of group?" And they did a pretty good job of it, actually. And McNeil took umbrage to this and went after Fuji Television, said, "Cut this out. This blackface is racist, and you people are terrible for doing this and putting something like this on the air." And so I remember reading that, and in the article that I read, they quoted McNeil as saying, "Let him know, shut it down," all these really, really militant kind of slogans. So he wrote me an email directly, and he said, I'm going to do this article. I'm doing an article for the HuffPost or something like that, and I'm trying to find out what people are thinking about this particular incident. And can you tell me, frankly, what you feel? Now, up to that point, I had never, ever said anything to McNeil about what I think about what he's doing, what he thinks, what he says about Black Lives Matter, about the Black situation in Japan, about gaijins in Japan. I just never talked to him about it because I thought we're contemporaries, and who has to fight with contemporaries? And so I answered his email in good faith, and I said, I can understand your feelings, and I can understand that you're telling Fuji TV that you don't like it, and that you don't want that, you don't think that they should put things like that on TV, but your sloganeering, especially "shut it down," sounds rather Sharpton-esque, in my humble opinion. So I thought you might have gone overboard with that kind of thing. And so, but that's my opinion. It's not meant as a criticism. You asked my opinion, so I gave it to you, and all this kind of stuff. And so I said, please feel free to quote me on any of this that you want in your article, and best of luck. And I never heard from him again. So evidently, since I didn't agree wholeheartedly, I became one of the other. But then, okay, but still he was appearing here and there. Okay, Bay's doing his thing, making his money while he's got his 15 minutes of fame. And then he gave an interview. I don't remember if it was into an English publication or a Japanese publication, where he questioned the manhood of Japanese. I don't quote me on that. Something to that effect. He questioned the manhood of Japanese men because they don't come out more strongly in support of or against this, or for whatever he's for, or against whatever he's for. He says that puts their manhood into question. And a lot of Japanese people got really mad about that. And he took a lot of bad press about that. And if you want to know details, it's all up on Wikipedia. If you look up Bay McNeil on Wikipedia, and there's a section called Controversy, and they'll tell it much more accurately than the way I'm trying to cover it now. Okay, here we are into heavy detail. Okay, that's the same question. At this point, where would you call Anyway, I call home here because that's, I've got a wife, 2 kids, 2 grandkids. Back in the United States, my parents are gone, and I am a member of a pretty dysfunctional family that, for some reason, that I still have not been able to figure out. Um, Brothers and sisters have decided not to communicate with each other, are hostile to each other. People who I never meet. I don't know. I don't want to get into it because so my feeling of home, is here. We get together during the New Year's holidays. We have a big family get together. My wife and I celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary a couple years ago, and we had a big extended family get together down in Fukuoka. People treat me very warmly. My wife's family treats me much better than my American family. So home is here. Okay. All right. I hope the government doesn't do something to screw that up. If I had to go back to the States, I'll be in big trouble. If you want to stay young, marry a woman your age. Do you remember that Calypso song? If you want to be happy for the rest of your life, make a pretty woman your wife. For from my personal point of view, get a pretty woman to marry you. Oh, I remember it. Yeah. Marry a woman your own age. Yeah, or close to your own age. That's true. That's true. My wife is always saying, if I die, will you remarry? And I always tell her, I could never imagine going out and trying to develop a relationship with another woman, especially a younger woman. No way. No way. I always joke with her. I said, if you die, I said, if you pass away within a week, I'm buying a first class ticket, or a one-way ticket to Manila, or maybe I'll go to Dumaguete and go see Paul. All right. If you want to be, there it is, an ugly woman, your wife. Sorry, I got it backwards. Okay. If an elderly expat lives alone in Asia, what would happen if they got a stroke or dementia and they had no immediate family to care for them? Well, Japan does have old age insurance. I know because I'm paying it right now. How it works, I don't know. I refuse to say I'm old age, right? Some damn commenter called me grandpa the other day. I look in this camera. I look as young as I did when I was 20, from my point of view, at least. But yeah, I don't know. I would imagine something would be done. Anybody know? And I was in contact with McNeil too. He was, good choice of tenses there, a very cool guy. Yeah. Yeah. I got along really well with him until I gave him a frank answer. There you go, Ed Noy. That's right. Catholic was Catholic in some areas in the USA back in the day, Ed. You're right. In Chicago, Catholic. Some of the priests used to say that. Catholic, right? You're correct. You had me worried there for a minute there, Ed. Okay. My mind is in the gutter. I'm sorry, Ed Noy. You are afraid of walking into the gutter, and I'm already there. So sorry. Sorry about that. Okay. Every damn time you're about to say something, I really want to hear a goddamn ad pops up. Really? I had it set to medium. Wow. Well, I don't want to turn ads off because, it's nice to have ads. But you know, if you don't want to have ads, you know what the answer is. And I will point out that super chats are turned on. But I don't want to be, that kind of person. I gotta pay the rent if you people don't be. I don't want to be that kind of person because I don't depend on this for my rent. But it pops up beside your video and just cuts out your audio. That sucks. If they're gonna cut it, they should cut it. The other day, I sat across from an Indian guy looking with an Indian-looking guy with an empty seat between us. It was a very crowded train, but nobody had the courage to sit between us. I pointed it out to him, and we laughed. Yeah, yeah, it is laughable, isn't it? It is laughable. That video that I did on the Gaijin seat got a lot of man, did that ignite the firestorm of comments. Everybody's got an opinion about that, and every opinion is different. So, okay. In my experience, black guys always got over. Here we go again. Dan talks about this constantly. My friends liked it here better than the USA. Okay. Do you know, Dan, by talking about black guys, you know what it sounds like? Okay. Steve says, good question. Dysfunctional families are very common. Yeah, especially in my family. Yeah, dysfunctional families are very common. Dan says, my home is here, and I feel so blessed that I thought to come back and stay here. Yeah, me too. Me too. I hope I don't end up like Rambo. I wish Japan would love me as much as I love Japan. I doubt it. Mail order wife doesn't exist anymore. I guess it lives. It exists in a way in the Philippines and Thailand. I've never heard about it in Japan. But, there were a lot of things in Paul in Japan, Paul in the Philippines, and things that I've seen on Thailand YouTube is that guys will develop an online relationship. I guess there are dating sites or matchmaking sites that are, Philippine matchmaking sites, meet the girl of your dreams. And they'll get on there and meet a girl and decide this is it. And they'll come here to meet her. Some of them marry, some of them get here. And one of the parties takes one look at the other and says, whoop, mistake, whoop, bye. And there is such a thing. In fact, it's quite common in the Philippines, from what I can gather from Paul in the Philippines. And hey, Pops, watch it there, young whippersnapper. Get off my lawn. And Axeman says, you're as old as you act. Yeah, I saw a video just before connecting here. And it was about this place in Appalachia. And it was, I forgot the name, Dingle or something like that. And to get to this place, you had to go through a mile-long tunnel, a one-lane, mile-long tunnel. And it was like cut off from the rest of the world. And there was this group of people living in this hollow. I forgot the name. Something hollow, or as they call it there, something holler. And this guy went in there and interviewed them. When he first got there, he started talking to this guy, and some old guy walked by and says, "Get out of here with all your damn cameras!" It was really tense at first. But anyway, things lightened up. And there was this one guy, and he looked like he was like 90. And he says, "I'm the oldest one around here." And the cameraman says, "How old are you?" And he said, 72. So, wow, I mean, he looked decrepit, Okay. An elderly expat in Asia with a stroke equals sausage. Oh, you mean they become sausage meat? They just ground up and put in a hot dog? Could be. I don't know. All right. I guess it depends where in Asia you are. If you are on YouTube, a lot of them pay for premium, and that gets rid of all the ads. Yeah. If you want to get rid of all the ads, it's worth paying for premium if you've got the money. Now, I was like, maybe a lot of you, I'm not going to pay all that money for premium. However, I did when I went into a break, 2-month break at school, and they had a 2 or 3 month trial period, free trial period for premium. So I enrolled and I never canceled it. I mean, and I've been paying ever since. Because if you've ever tried premium and don't have to put up with ads, 0 ads, it's wonderful. And you could get a family plan, Dan, where you could put you and your wife, and I don't know, maybe even your wife's sister on there, and you all get premium for a relatively low price. I'm not a YouTube salesperson, but I've even been told that YouTube purposely makes ads intrusive and annoying to get people to move to premium. So that's my suggestion. I'm a premium member, and you should be too. And I don't get anything for that. Can you talk about the bubble era? Was it as great as people often say it was? Yeah, I talked about the bubble era, I think last live stream. And yes, it was great. And it was, let me warn you, if it ever becomes as nice as the bubble era again, during the bubble era, you never imagine that it will end. You're sitting there and making money hand over fist, and your assets, your investments are through the roof, and everything you touch causes money to fall through from the sky. And you think, man, Japan is on a roll. Japan is going to, there was a book, Japan as number one. And everybody thought that that's what's going to happen. And Japan was going to be the number one economy and America's number two. And Japan bought the Pan Am building. And it was all built on Japan real estate. And I knew people who had real estate, and they were doing so well. And I said, aren't you afraid if the price drops? And they said, the price of real estate in Japan will never drop because Japan's land mass is limited. And so they can't produce more. So it's always limited. So the price will forever go up. And it was going up across the entire archipelago. So people were making tons of money on their real estate. They were borrowing on their real estate and using that money to go into the stock market and doing margin buying on their cash investments. And I mean, money was just multiplying. And businesses were paying all kinds of money, and there was a shortage of labor. I might have mentioned I bought a house in the U.S. because I was going to go work in the U.S. The internet was already, email was already advanced. So I was thinking, well, I'm going to go become a translator living in America on American prices, making money on Japanese prices, even drop my price a little bit, make it more attractive, and I'll be in like Flynn and set for life. Thank God I never pulled that particular trigger. But yeah, it was wonderful. But the crash was pretty brutal. In my industry, in the translation industry, it wasn't like, it didn't crash like this, but it did a slow glide. And as I said, it went down to about 30% of what it was of the high in the bubble era. But the bubble era was so high that even 30% was enough to live on. And now, thanks to AI, translation business is falling apart. Even though people in the comments were saying, no, AI can never do translation. That's a bunch of baloney. It makes too many mistakes. Well, it depends on the translation. And of course, a translator will say that. Okay. All right. Dingleberry. There's an old word. Dingleberry. There's no safety net for expats in Asia. Secure yourself financially and marry. I don't know. What do you think? No safety net for expats. I guess it depends on what kind of expat you are. If you pay into the Japanese Social Security and things like that, you're entitled to collect it when you reach a certain age. So I wouldn't say there's no safety net in Asia if you're talking about Japan. If you're including Japan in Asia. Okay. But if everybody went premium, would you not get a cut? What they do is they got some calculation, and I get some kind of proportion or percentage. If my viewer, if somebody who's my viewer is a premium payer, they pay into some kind of a pool, right, of premium income. And some portion of that premium income is paid out to creators. How much I get, how they calculate that, I don't know. I do get a breakdown. This much of your income came from premium people. But I still get income from premium subscribers. How it's calculated and how much it is, I could probably find out how much it is, but how they came up to that calculation, I don't know. Okay, Dano, during the bubble era, if you were not in on it, it was terrible. Japanese were very aggressive. Yes, Japanese were very aggressive. And yeah, if you were not, that's true about anything, right? If you didn't maneuver correctly, it could be terrible. Things could be terrible now if you don't maneuver correctly. And as far as the Japanese being very aggressive, at the risk of getting into big trouble from my very wonderful Japanese listeners, and I love Japan, I love Japanese people, but the bubble era Japanese were very arrogant, and Dan says aggressive. I think he was trying to be nice, and he didn't say arrogant, but I think arrogant is what they were. And they thought they had life figured out. And they thought they had economics figured out. And they thought they knew better than anybody. And yeah, you know what I'm saying. I don't have to go into detail. But yeah, it was a different kind of Japan at that time. Okay. In like Flint is not in like Flynn. Who said in like Flynn? I think in like Flynn is correct. I don't know. I'm not going to get into a. I think you're saying in like Flint was the name of a movie, wasn't it? With James Coburn. And in like Flynn, double N is correct, but it's not the movie title. Okay. So I may get YouTube Premium. My ads always seem to be for hair loss remedies. Kelvin, how's your hair? Hair loss remedies, Viagra, or Turo rental company? Not sure what they are trying to tell me. Yeah, I used to joke about that. Remember with all these spam emails that used to get past the filter in the early days of Gmail? I used to get these constant emails for Viagra and, dear sir, please help me. I've got $10 billion that I need to move. Can I use your bank account, and all this kind of stuff. And I used to, not only Viagra, but penis enlargement pills or something. And I used to say, man, if I answered all that email, I'd have the biggest dong in the world and be a billionaire by now. But I never did. So maybe missed my chance. I hope I don't get dinged for that by YouTube. They used to say American softy because Americans only work 8 hours a day. Yeah. If you want to see a movie that captured pretty well the tone of those times, watch the movie Gung Ho with Michael Keaton. The old Batman guy, Michael Keaton, Gung Ho. That movie captures really well the Japanese attitude vis-a-vis Americans during those days. Rumpelstiltskin says, by the way, I renewed my Gaijin card. No money needed to renew. Okay, good to know. Good to know. I hope they keep that up. Okay. That's okay. I know what you meant. We don't have any spelling Nazis here. Do you get Social Security from the U.S.? I heard the U.S. and Japan have an agreement. Is that true? Yes, that's true. I do get Social Security from the U.S. Tokyo Dan might want to chime in on that, how he does it. I heard some people get both from Japan and the U.S. I heard some people living in the U.S. get it from Japan. They've got all kinds of things going. But Japan does have an agreement with the United States, and they cooperate with each other. Okay? All right. Dave Ho, don't worry about it. I had to check. I wasn't sure either. I quickly did a search. Okay. Gung Ho, also Tokyo Pop. Okay. Yeah, I remember that title. Tokyo Pop. I don't remember what it's about, though. I knew you were going to say Gung Ho before you said it. Great movie. Fantastic movie. My favorite, okay, this is a spoiler alert. My favorite line that captured, it's funny, it's a good joke, and it totally captured the way Japanese people were in those days and still are in these days. Michael Keaton was in a meeting with two Japanese guys, and they were giving him this schedule. And I think they were trying to make him fail or something like that. So they gave him this impossible schedule. They had to finish X number of cars. His team needed to complete building of X number of cars by a certain date. And they gave him the thing, and Michael Keaton was trying to save the factory and save the jobs. And he was saying, well, okay, should be, no problem. And one of the Japanese guys leaned in and he says, are you sure that you're going to be able to meet this schedule? And Michael Keaton says, hey, guys, is a frog's ass watertight? And these two Japanese guys go like this, and they turn to each other and start in Japanese. And they turn around and he says, yes, we believe it is. That captures the whole thing in a nutshell. Great movie. Okay. Booley says, we go for accuracy. Yeah. Okay. Oh, what did I do? I always screw up this scrolling. I was up in Dingleberry before. Okay. Things seem to be being quieting down. You want to see some more news? What do we got here? Oh, talking about that place in Oita. Did I? Oh, here's a good one. We heard about the language requirement, right? Oh, we got another comment here before I go into the. Has the Japanese economy ever been this bad? Oh, yeah. The cost of living is getting crazy. Yeah, the cost of living is a problem. It hasn't been this bad for a long time. inflation was a problem many years ago, but prices have been flat for a long time, which is why wages have been flat, because people didn't feel the crunch of rising prices. So, like the language teaching positions in Japan have gone way down because things never felt that expensive. But inflation has gotten really bad. Though during the bubble, as I have mentioned before, bank interest rates were 10%, over 10%. So if you locked your money up into a 3-year, I don't even know what you call them in English, takey, 3-year or 5-year takey, you could get really high interest. I mean, you could make some real money on your savings. But, then it went down to zero, near zero, under zero, or something like that. But the Japanese economy does seem to be bad, but I'm not an economics guy, so I don't know that much about it. But I'm always thinking, they've got 40 million tourists coming in here spending money. Doesn't that doesn't I don't know. Something doesn't add up to me. Something's a little bit funny. Anyway, Asan Motors, gung ho. Asan on the plane was the kanji for miserable pressure. I never noticed that. I don't remember seeing any kanji in the thing, but I'm going to watch the movie again. Check it out. Good. It might be. Great movie. I liked remember when Michael Keaton was looking at the food in the glass case, and he went, oh, yeah. That's another one that I thought was pretty funny. Yeah, I may buy that CD. Gung Ho was a great representation of both Japanese. Oh, CD is the word for Teiki, certificates of deposit. Gung Ho was a great representation of both Japanese business culture and the U.S. automotive unions. Kelvin Mitchell, you are right on the money. I liked it when the Japanese went there and tried to get the guys to do their jumping jacks in the morning, and the guy, I laughed my butt off when I saw that. And you're right, it was a very, very good representation of that. CD core, yeah, thank you. Certificate of deposit, Teiki. Things never add up in Japan, Rumpelstiltskin said. You may have a point there. As a dad of 2 half Japanese kids myself, have your kids fully embraced Japan life as adults? Do they have mixed cultures still? Or did they go back to the U.S.? I always wonder with my kids. Well, both my kids went to Japanese school. So their mother tongue is basically Japanese. My elder son went to college in the United States, so he's quite bilingual, and he's working in a job where his bilingual skills do him a lot of good. My younger son never went to the States for schooling. My younger son took Japanese citizenship like a year ago, and my elder son, we were talking just about a week ago, and he says that he is going to take Japanese citizenship. And so that answers your question. They feel more at home in Japan. There was back when they were born, America was still a very respected place among Japanese and among other countries. And I don't say that Japanese disrespect the United States. A lot of Japanese people, of course, still respect Japanese in some sense, still respect the United States in some sense, but they don't idolize it as they once did, and with good reason. It's good to have American Social Security with the weak yen. Yes. And as the yen went up, it felt like we were getting a raise. And then they raised the Social Security payment every year according to the cost of living in the United States. It's really nice now, as long as it doesn't start going in the opposite direction. By the way, YouTube payments are calculated in dollars too, so that's always nice. Tokyo Dental, Social Security and extremely good health care. Yeah, in Japan, the healthcare, a lot of people fault Japanese healthcare. I've had nothing but good experiences. Some commenter, was it here? Was it under a video? I don't remember. Somebody was talking about pain management. Japan's doctors have poor pain management. I've never had that. The doctors that I know are very quick with pain relievers, painkiller medication. And as far as they say that some Japanese treatments and medicines, or some American treatments and medicines are not available in Japan. I don't know the details behind that. That may be good, that may be bad. I don't know. But I've always had a good experience with Japanese healthcare. Den says, better in Japan than is the USA. No waiting for operations. Okay. Like I said, I like Japanese healthcare, but I'm sure, Dan, that there are a lot of pro-American healthcare people that may disagree with you, though I do agree with you. All right. My 3 kids went to CAG with English education. C is Canadian. They are acculturated American. 2 married Americans and live in the States. 1 married an American or Japanese and lives in Japan. Yeah, that's the thing, right? What it's their education. When I went to Sophia University, I went during the days when they had an international campus in Ichigaya. And so I was there with a big mix of people from all over the world. And there was quite a contingent of young Japanese people, young Japanese kids, whose parents, wanting them to have an international outlook, sent them to international school, St. Mary's or American School Japan, and had them educated that way for grammar school and high school. And these kids, even though they were Japanese living in Japan, they were socially functionally able to they were able to function socially in Japan. They could carry on a conversation and things like that. But their kanji skills, kanji reading and writing skills were lacking. Not zero, not bad, really bad, but lacking. So their reading and writing skills were not as good as a person who went through the Japanese education system. So it's a real interesting situation. Thank you for letting us know there, David. Kids of American Japanese parents are not half, they are double. There you go, Tokyo Dano. I heard a guy say that a long time ago, and I thought it was really cool. Oh, okay. CAG, Christian Academy Japan in Higashi Kurube. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. I thought it was some Canadian something. I was wondering if your kids say a boot or something like that. Okay. Now, since we're talking about education, and I was talking about that place in Oita that was teaching their people how to speak Oita dialect. Here's one that I thought was pretty interesting. We've got all this stuff about language requirements for visas. So people are saying, "Oh, what am I going to do? I got to get a, N2 or N5 or N4, and what am I going to do?" So then we come up with this story. Foreign workers in Japan face a dearth of accredited language schools. There are only 3 certified schools to teach Japanese under new employment skill development program. Sounds like one of those deals that we long-termers know. Pass a rule and try to figure out how to implement it later. As Japan shifts to a new training program for foreign workers, only 3 schools nationwide are certified to teach Japanese for the language requirement. Isn't that terrible? Isn't that dumb? Foreigners employed under Japan's technical intern training program often are required to return to their home countries after about 3 years. Aside from brief instructional sessions provided immediately upon arrival, the program lacks a mechanism for learning Japanese. The skill development program requires workers to pass N5 of the Japanese language proficiency test, the lowest level of the exam, or complete a 100-hour course at an accredited Japanese language school before starting work. The accreditation system for Japanese language schools, which began in fiscal 2024, consists of 3 categories: one for workers, another one for international students, and the last for residents. And here are the different language schools. This shows the number of accredited education facilities. General Japanese language schools, plenty. Accredited for international students, around 100. Accredited for workers, very few. Accredited for residents, virtually 0. On April 30th, the Education Ministry said it had accredited 32 institutions for international students, raising the total to 93 for that category. However, only 2 new institutions applied for accreditation for working adults, and neither has received approval yet. Okay, under the system for exchange students, schools must obtain such certification by spring 2029, or they no longer will be able to accept students from overseas. The issue is critical for many institutions, forcing them to hold off seeking accreditation for programs serving workers. Wow. Sounds like a real snafu kind of situation here. The old Japan is Japan is a ship that can go straight real fast, but doesn't have any brakes. What do you people think about this? I don't think any of this affects any of us, does it? But it sure affects some of these workers. All right. No comment. Okay. Okay. We'll move on then. We'll move on. Did you hear about that guy? Did you hear about the Japan bobsled team member? Not the Jamaican bobsled team, the Japan bobsled team. And this is a pretty good one because it will tell. I'm sure you old folks in Japan will know about this slur that they talk about. The head of the Japanese bobsled team apologized on Tuesday and admitted to making utterly unacceptable remarks that reportedly, I wonder why they say reportedly, included an anti-Korean slur. If he apologized, then it must have been. Why do they say it? People are so careful, too careful these days. So the guy, whose name is Kitano, he said in a statement that there were instances where I failed to maintain my composure. Evidently, the team lost in some qualifying race, and he was criticizing himself. But in criticizing himself, he used a racially charged term that you may know or may not know. So the HuffPost reported that Kitano had used an anti-Korean slur using the sentence "Bakaya chon demo dekiru," which means anybody can do it, but the words that make up that anybody can do it actually mean literally even an idiot or a Korean can do it, or even an idiot. Yeah, idiot or Korean can do it. The word chon is an antiquated anti-Korean slur. Okay. So I And of course, they said the use of such language is utterly unacceptable, blah, 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 blah. So he quit and all this kind of, and it says bitter memories of Japan's brutal occupation of the Korean Peninsula from 1945 have long cast a shadow over Tokyo's Seoul ties. Those of you, those good friends of mine who have been here a long time, remember that word that they used to use for a snapshot camera? Just press and shoot. Remember what they used to call those? Remember what they used to call those? Let's see if anybody answers. I'm gonna hold off giving the answer, see if anybody else comes up with it. I remember. And so when I heard this, I was surprised because I first heard that word, that racially charged word for a press and shoot camera when I first came here down in Fukuoka. You know, Fukuoka, they've got their own way of saying things down there. And I thought that was the standard Japanese word for snapshot camera. And I used to use it all the time, thinking nothing of it. Of course, I don't know it. You know, I'm unfamiliar with the racial overtones or undertones of nuances of Japanese language. And so I would use it thinking it was a neutral term until somebody pulled me aside and said, you shouldn't say that because you know what that means? And I said, no. And they explained it to me, and I've never used it since. And that was a long time ago. So I haven't heard it in decades. So then when it popped up, something happened in this article. This article popped up, and I saw, oh yeah, that sounds like the bad word I used to use. Nobody knows. Oh, wait a minute, I got to scroll. No. Yeah, this is the last comments I have. They're still talking about Bob's cool runnings. Yeah, I guess they can call this guy uncool runnings because of the term that he used. Nobody knows the term. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Long ago, they used to call a camera that needed no focusing, no adjustment, no aperture settings, just point and shoot. They used to call that a bakachon camera. Bakachon camera. And, you know, I knew what the word baka, you know, that's one of the first words you learn in Japan. So I knew that word, but so I just thought, oh, it just means a camera so easy to use that even a baka person can use it. So I thought bakachon, I thought maybe chon was something like chan, right? Baka-chan, maybe. So I used to use it all the time. That's just a bakachon. And I think I was with a group of people, and I used it. And people, you know, oh, and they pulled it aside and they said, "Don't use that word; it's bad." And I think I even said, "Well, baka's not bad of the word. No, it's not the baka; it's the chon." So the chon was a derogatory term for Korean, and I guess bakachon literally means something so simple even a dumb Korean could operate it by pressing a button. So don't use it. That is, I'm giving you this as a cultural historical term. This is not to encourage anybody to use it. Don't use it. But if you hear it, now you'll know. Okay. And San Seito's Kamiya used the same slur in a public speech outside a station last year. He got pulled up on it too, as he should, right? I mean, it would have been one thing if Japan had a sterling history vis-a-vis Korea and using a derogatory term. However, and I'm not going to go any further, all of you I know are knowledgeable of your history. And Tokyo Dano said, Ed, some people here think we are living very exotic lives. But to us, unless we stop and think, we are just living normal daily lives. But actually, we are living the lives that many yearn for. Yeah, you may be correct, Dan. And you are correct, especially in the first half. I see some people doing Japan channels and going out with their camera and whoa, there, yeah, man, whoa, raw fish. And I see those and I think to myself, I wish I still had that innocence. Back when we had that innocence, we didn't carry around a movie camera all the time. But a lot of the things that are exotic and exciting and Disneyland like about Japan to us are just our daily lives. I was thinking about this the other day. Let me run this past you, GAIJIN50 advisors. I was walking past Tokyo Dome the other day. And I've been thinking for a long time about doing a video. I've been thinking about this for a real long time, but I hesitate to do it because I don't want to get into too much trouble. But there are these very Disneyland kind of beliefs people have about Japan has this sense of meiwaku, and they never do anything to make people around them feel bad. Or that the Japanese people never litter, and Japanese people are so clean, and Japanese, you know what I'm saying. And I've been thinking of, I always have my camera in my pocket because I'm thinking that what if something happens, and I say, oh, I should have had my, so I always have my camera, though I have never pulled it out since I bought the camera. But I was walking past Tokyo Dome the other day, and there was this group, and there was a Giants baseball game, so it was very crowded, and there were masses of people going in both directions through this one place where the walk area narrowed a bit, and so it was very. There was a human meat traffic jam going on, and there was this group of 6 or 7 businessmen looking kind of people standing in a group, in a knot, right in the middle of this narrow passageway where people were trying to walk. And they were just standing there talking and laughing, having some kind of a coffee clutch or uchiwase or whatever. And I have been tempted as I go about my daily life, even though something like that is part of our daily life, as people who live here know, it happens all the time. But I've been thinking of, every time I see something like that, shooting it or taking a picture or shooting a video. And then someday putting it all together into one of these, what things are really like, as opposed to the myths of Japan. So let me know what you think about that. Like I said, I haven't done it. I haven't even started it, but it's been in the back of my mind for a long, long time. And Dan says, to me, foreigners in China are living exotic lives. Yeah. If I was single and young, I'd be tempted to go to China. Sure. Because it's different. I'd be tempted to go to Poland. Your video of your face is completely obscured by comments. Is it my side? Maybe if I do this. How's this? Is this better? I don't know what you're watching on. Okay. If you're watching on a phone, that might happen. But I remember going home in the 80s and people being grossed out that I eat raw fish. They'd also ask me if I eat dog. Well, unfortunately, dog is pretty popular in a lot of areas around here, but not in Japan. I think if I had a chance to eat dog, I'd try it. It is meat. I mean, it's a little sad. If it looks like Fido when it comes in on the plate, I probably would have a hard time eating it. But if it looks like just a piece of meat, I'd probably try it. I wouldn't have much expectations. But as far as that raw fish is concerned, I was lucky because before I came here, I was talking. I've always been an adventuresome eater, and my father said to me before I came here, "Man, they eat raw fish over here. That's going to be cool. You can try that out." So I always had a real positive about Japanese food, raw fish, everything. So I tried everything. I don't really like so-called ikizukuri very much, where you eat living things or things that are still twitching. That's a little weird, and it's not the taste, but the movement inside your mouth is a little weird. I'm not for that very much, but I've eaten it, I've tried it, but I'd rather not. But anyway, okay. Please make that video. Your wish is my command, my friend. I'm going to start doing it because I've been, man, oh man, I took so much flack about that gaijin seat thing and people telling me, Japanese people, you were sitting in a priority seat. And that's why people were hesitating to sit, because Japanese people want to leave the priority seat open for old people and people who really need to sit there. And I'll tell you what, in Tokyo, that's such a pile of garbage that I had a hard time keeping my tongue when I responded to those kind of comments. Good. All right. Good. Good, as they say here. I eat worms. Mopani worms. I was born in Africa. Do they look like worms? Do they taste good? Are they alive? Okay. If you're brought up eating a certain food, it tastes good. My ancestry is Polish. I'm from Chicago. You could probably figure that out. All of my grandparents, my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side, and all four of my great-grandparents on my father's side were born in Poland. And so back in the day when I was a kid, the thing was every Sunday we would go to both grandmother's house, go to one grandmother's house, spend a couple hours, go to the other grandmother's house, and then go back home. And of course, on Christmas and Thanksgiving and the major holidays, everybody would get together and we'd eat Polish cuisine as fixed by especially my mother's mother, who was from a peasant background, so she knew how to cook really good sausages and sauerkraut. But she used to cook a soup that was called czarnina. And czarnina, really good stuff. I mean, I loved it as I was a kid. And it had thick dumpling-style noodles and raisins. And it was like a maroon-colored, looked like almost like a beet soup. Man, I love that, love that, love. But it's duck's blood soup. To cook czarnina, my grandmother would have to go out and buy a live duck and save the blood and do something, whatever she does with it. But tastes good, tasted wonderful, but sounds pretty gross in this day and age. But if I had a chance to eat it again, I think I would. Mopani worms are delicious. Okay. I wonder if you can get those in Japan. Are they alive? That's the big question. Are they alive? If they are alive, that would be easy to eat them. Just put them in your mouth and they just... Okay. I think chemically enhanced food from factory are grosser and scarier than anything in Japan. Not that I don't eat the factory food. There's that too, right? Yeah, the chemically enhanced factory foods from the factory. Yeah, I think that's a big problem, especially in the United States. And it is gradually becoming a problem in Japan as well. There's a lot of super processed food that's on the market. You can still get a lot of fresh stuff. I'm sure you could get fresh stuff in the United States too, but you have to shop for it and you have to avoid buying the instant stuff. But, a cup noodle every now and then is not that bad. I used to, there are a couple of McDonald's near where I live, and I used to, like once a month, get a hankering for a Big Mac, and I'd go get one and eat it. And as soon as I'd finish it, I'd say, why did I do that? And regret it. But now that they opened a Burger King in the neighborhood, no more Mac attacks for me. They are alive, fat, lots of protein. Okay. I saw a movie one time, so it may be total BS. And it was one of those, strange practices of the world, It was in Japan, and it was a Japanese movie. It had a Japanese narration. And it showed a scene from Africa, and evidently there was a big infestation of grasshoppers. And grasshoppers, there were so many grasshoppers, and it was in Africa, they said. And there was so many grasshoppers that when they started flying, it almost blocked the sun. And they showed a guy who just stood in front of the flying grasshoppers and opened his mouth, and they flew in, and he ate them. And I remember seeing that, and I thought, wow, okay. I like the dried Mopani worms, maybe stronger, nutty taste. I think dried or fried or freeze-dried or whatever they do with them, insects of any type, taste good. I've eaten, even chocolate-covered insects where they somehow dehydrate them or take the juices, eliminate the juices, make them real crunchy and nutty. All you got to do is get past the thought. It tastes pretty good. And Bu Li comes in with a little philosophy here. Someday the worms will eat you too. Yeah. Someday the worm will turn, right? Didn't know he liked that one. Okay. I tried Hachinoko, not recommended. Yeah, I'll say that too. I was up in, where was that? Was that in Niigata or somewhere? And I was there by myself, and I said to this guy I was with, I said, I got to bring a omiyage, souvenirs, something back, something local back to my wife. What do you recommend? And he says, Hachinoko in honey. So I said, yeah, okay. Yeah, so, no, I don't know. Was it in honey? I don't remember. Anyway. And there was this jar, and this jar was a nest of bee larvae or wasp larvae. I don't know what. So I bought it. I thought, my wife likes to eat weird stuff. She'll love this. So I got home and I said to my wife, here's my omiyage. And she says, I'm not eating that shit. So so I thought, what am I going to do with it? It wasn't that cheap. And she says, you eat it. So I said, okay, I eat anything. And I ate some of it, but it didn't taste very good. It got really old really quick. I also eat offal, the parts of sheep that Westerners throw away. Trotters are great with beans. Tripe is great on its own. African delicacies, yes, Mopani are alive. Okay, they have, is offal only sheep? Pardon my ignorance here. In a minute, I'll have. Okay, it's any animal. It's the innards of any animal. Offal is popular here in Japan. They call it mutsu and mutsunabe, and they put it into a nabe, like what they call it, hot pot in the States, where it's cooking on the table in front of you, and they put all kinds of spices and certain vegetables that have a strong taste, and garlic and things like that. And it's very good. I like it. I like it. My wife hates it, so I don't get it at home that much. But when I have a chance to eat it outside, yes, I do. Trotters, yeah, trotters, pig's feet. That's also big in Polish food too. Pig's feet, pickled pig's feet is big. Tripe, yep, I've heard of tripe, and I've seen tripe in the store, but I don't think I've ever eaten tripe on its own. I've eaten it maybe part of motsunabe. African delicacies, yes, mopaniola. Thank you. Dan says, can mopani worms cure glaucoma? Can you get them in Tokyo? Okay. And the grasshopper thing, yeah, Africans eat grasshoppers too, but they are cooked, not eaten alive. Yeah, I think live grasshoppers, don't they secrete some stinky, bitter stuff? I wouldn't want to eat that. There's a restaurant in Tokyo which has many insects on the menu. Yeah, I think I heard about that. Yeah. And I know, I don't remember where exactly it is. Isn't there a vending machine somewhere that serves all kinds of bug snacks? A little bit expensive though. Tokyo Dan, the only known cure for glaucoma is marijuana. So said Bob Marley. All right. All right. Okay. Cicada. Oh, that's the address of maybe the restaurant. Ant cicada. Okay. Excuse me as I write this down. 246. That's a nice. Bakuracho. Sounds like a real backstreet neighborhood. I don't know, but just joking. 50 years of marriage is an amazing feat. I'm on year 12. What's your secret? Do you and your wife share hobbies? Nope. Nope. Maybe that's why it lasted. She does her thing. I do my thing. She did a great job raising my kids during a lot of it was during the bubble days when I was working 7 days a week. And I was able to go to college while on the GI Bill and working. And she supported me during those days and never complained. And so now she's living in heaven. I never complain what she wants to do. She wants to go out with her friends. She wants to take a trip. She wants to spend money. It's all dozo. Maybe that's the secret. We argue. We fight. I usually lose, but maybe that's a secret too. But we do share country music together. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, she's like my manager. She helps me gather guests, and she gets the payment from the venue and divides it into envelopes to pay the band. And she buys the band members bento and stuff like that. So I don't have to deal with any of that. And also I depend upon my wife for a lot of things, filing Japanese taxes and doing other official things that maybe I should do on my own, but she does it. So, but yeah, she's a Kyushu woman, tough as nails. Tough as nails. Actually, we're probably getting near 55 years here pretty soon. Okay. Tokyo Dan says, Motsu Nikomi, offal, dynamite stuff. Yep. Love it. Koreans love pig feet. They sure do, don't they? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Dan says marijuana only lowers the pressure, IOP, for a short time while smoking. It doesn't fix optical nerve damage. So you know what that means, Dan? Keep smoking. Don't stop smoking. No, I don't know about that, but I didn't even know it had pressure lowering properties. Okay. All right, we're at hour number 2. What do you say, Stuart fans? We're gonna keep going here, or we're gonna call it a day. We'll take a. We should take a maybe. Oh, I've got a survey. Where is that? They added survey capabilities, but I've never used it. They've got all kinds of stuff here. They've got sound effects. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Oh, we got a comment. I got to get back to the comments. Sounds like the same. I hope that means I'm on the right track. Okay, I got a wee. Okay, why don't we call it a day? We've gone 2 hours. I'm going to do a midweek podcast on Tuesday morning, Japan time, which will be Monday evening, US time. This is because Tuesday is the only midweek day that I have off and am able to do this. I was going to say your marriage is just like my, okay, same at 36 years. Then you had to drag country music. Actually, I appreciate her assistance because I play country music in a Japanese social setting. And I don't know if I need to go any further. Having a Japanese person at your side helps a lot, especially when I'm about to shoot my mouth off and she gives me an elbow in the ribs and I know it's time to shut up or else I'm going to be in trouble. But like I said, I'm still doing country music and I'm still in the Japanese society. So I have to bite my tongue about what I say and how I say it. But one day, I don't know when, but someday I will retire from Japanese Country Music Society, and then I am going to spill the beans. So look forward to that. It's going to be a little bit of, at least a couple of years, though, before I do that. All right, like I was saying, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead. Buli, yeah, keep it up, Buli. You know, women get tough in their old age and just learn how to duck and things like that. Spill the beans in a book. Writing a book's a pain in the butt. I might do it here as part of this. Yeah, I might do it. I might do a video. Maybe I should start collecting B-roll for the video about the way some things are. I mean, if you've ever been to a Japanese country music event, it's real. It's cosplay central. People are dressed up in the full regalia. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I have seen many special country music event in Japan. I've said this before, so if you've heard it before, I'm sorry, but you go to a country music event and it's all, it's 100% Americana, right? And they even have the United States flag hanging there. And they've got the flag of Texas and Arizona, Colorado, all the cowboy states. And, people are grilling hot dogs and frying steaks. And I remember there used to be this big event where they had a cow on a spit and stuff like that. And I have never in all this time ever once seen an American performer at any of those big country events. And I'm not the only one here. I mean, I'm not saying me. Of course, I always include me in that, but there are other country performers. American country performers are never invited to perform at American country music events in Japan. Period. That's all I'm going to say up to this point. Anyway, X-Man. Sounds like X-Man wants to go. Everybody else wants to go. I'll see you again. Those of you who can make it, Tuesday morning, Japan time. It'll be 10 a.m. Japan time, in the evening sometime, U.S. time. I hope you can make it. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, I think Carl will be back. I hope so, at least. If he's not, it means his plane crashed, and that would be a bummer. But culture appropriation. There you go. I like what Ricky Gervais said about culture appropriation. If you don't know what he said about cultural appropriation, Ricky Gervais, check it out on the YouTube. You'll laugh until you fall over. See you next time, everybody. Bye.